Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Coach Replay Show. I am your host today, Corey Camp, and today I have Jami and Andrew on with me. Now I'm going to let you take it away, introduce yourselves to the audience for those who may not know you yet, and then we'll dive into this conversation about the uniqueness of infant toddler coaching and how you all do it in your organization.
Hi, my name is Jami Pollis. I am an early education coach and supervisor for our Early Head Start Childcare Partnership work at Kennebec Valley Community Action Program in Waterville, Maine. I've been with our agency for about 12 years, specifying and specifically working with that infant toddler age group, working in technical assistance capacity since probably 2015. So I'm super excited that this is the topic today. I love talking about babies and all of the great things we do with them.
My name is Bourassa, and I work with Jami. I'm very fortunate to work with her in a coaching capacity, and I pretty much am virtual coaching now exclusively, but I'm still supporting coaching and am a project support specialist for the agency as a whole. So I really am passionate about supporting coaching, specifically with the virtual format and being able to support the access that presents. And, as Jami said, we've been super lucky and fortunate to work with an infant toddler group for a couple of years now, using the platform in a core group. So we have some great takeaways and pieces to pull.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the specific nuances that come with the territory of being an infant toddler coach.
First and foremost, I think coaching at any age group is critical, that and foremost. But I also agree that there are some nuances, right, to the infant and toddler one. First and foremost, infants and toddlers kind of have their own thing going, right? They run their own schedule, and we get to join them on the ride. So when we talk about things like flexibility, when we talk about things like being present, it requires perhaps a different level or a different kind of intentionality than you might look for if you're working with an older age student. Along those same lines, some of the things that we're looking for maybe aren't quite as obvious. Maybe we're looking for how we interact. So we're looking for things that maybe a child isn't going to produce for us. Maybe we're looking for things along the lines of how long are we maintaining eye contact with a child? What is the result of that eye contact? So the things we're looking for might be a little bit different. The infant isn't going to produce a story verbally to us. So we're going to need to be able to unpeel that story in a different way that we are seeing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think for me, I started coaching pre-K, and I would say that was, like Jami really hit on it. For me, a big part of the shift was really thinking about, the primary learning aspect is the teacher themselves, right? And really coaching them to think about their engagement and working on themselves and how they present that, rather than the physical systems or structures of the classroom that might support that coaching model. So it's just, not that those pieces aren't there, but it's a little different shift on kind of that primary focus.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could also just add, in listening to your story as a parent, one of the things that I think can happen in the life of an early education teacher for an infant and toddler is so much about what happens in that child's day happens at a caregiving level. And there's very rarely is it just one thing happening at a time in an infant and toddler environment. It's very busy. And so I think when you're offering coaching in an infant toddler level, one of the things we get to do is to enhance the level of the teacher's understanding of the why of what they're doing. So an example I think about is one day I was able to be in the room while a teacher was feeding a baby. The baby has just starting to explore using a spoon, right? The teacher was focused on getting the food into the baby. I was able, through the art of video and observation, was able to say, wait a second, watch what this baby's eyes are doing. And you could almost see that brain synapse happening. You could see that connection happening where the child was figuring out, if I hold my hand this way and do this, this is what happens. And because I was able to be there in that moment and see it from a different perspective, I could take that why back to the teacher. This is why this face-to-face feeding is important. This is why the pace is this way. This is the result that you get. And that led to a reflective moment that sometimes teachers, again, of any ages, if you're in the moment, it's hard to take that time. But that's another thing that we get to do, take those ordinary moments and make them extraordinary, really.
Oh, I love that. So let's then kind of dive in and talk about first, thinking about your approach to coaching. And I do want to clarify, you said, you're kind of more of a technical assistance. When you say that, having been at a similar organization as Kennebec Valley, we talk about technical assistance. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm hopping and showing you how to use a computer tool, not kind of that kind of technology, right? So can you clarify really quickly technical assistance in your role and what that looks like? We're not the Geek Squad, right?
No, we're not the geeks. Well, I don't know, but anyways,
we're kind of geeky, right? We're educators,
but on the end, like technical assistance, it really is about adult learning. So we offer that on a continuum level. It starts with the training, and then it can move into mentoring, maybe some peer-to-peer network opportunities, some consultation, and then we have coaching at the higher end of that continuum in our program. So Andy and I are fortunate enough to be able to offer all of those different levels of technical assistance within our program.
I love that. Yeah. Thanks for, I wanted to pull that since you had used that technical term. I was like, oh, I want to make sure I clarify that for folks because they might be going, oh, they're tech coaches. Not exactly, right?
No.
So okay, so let's talk about your approach to coaching. How do you identify? I know you support in Head Starts and these early childhood settings. Is there a specific way that does everybody get coaching from you? How do you determine who receives what type of support from you? And then we'll kind of dive into what that support looks like.
So that's actually a great question. And it's one that we took a lot of care for, right? Because the word coaching just sort of entered our world one day. And we were able to partner with some great people in our state to figure it out. And what we determined was coaching is something you really need to be ready for. So there are specific factors that we're looking for because coaching is something that we take from a strengths-based approach, and it requires high levels of reflection, right? The ability to give and receive feedback, really, and then to do something with that feedback and whatever it is. And so we do have a list of practices. So it starts with a self-assessment. We do ask our educators to do a self-assessment. We have their supervisors do the same self-assessment on them. And so the supervisor will review that self-assessment, and then they'll help to determine what form of technical assistance will best meet the needs of the employee. And so they'll determine, are you ready for mentorship? Should you join a community of practice, or you're ready for coaching? And so then we take that from that lead, if that makes sense. So it really starts at that individual level, and then it works that way up. If coaching is where it is, then they're matched with a coach or assigned to a coach, and then we go from there.
Andy, do you have anything to add about your approach and how those folks are identified, or the impact that intentionality does have when you get to the specific supports that they've been identified for?
I mean, I think I would just say that, I mean, I think we're going to talk a lot about tiered and very similar processes. We do very similar things with how we chose our coaches. So I think our coaches were very intentionally chosen. There was a lot of energy and resources put into ensuring that they were prepared to provide those supports, both to one another and to the people that were identified. So I think just highlighting the fact that the agency really supported it from all levels. And recognize that it wasn't, that we needed the resources as coaches as well. And we'll talk about this more, but that's really led to us having a retention of coaches and having, a consistency and reliability. You have to spend less time on rapport building because we've had the same coaches for 5 or 6 years. So these are known individuals and known entities. And I think also, a lot of times you hear about coaches being brought in from external places to do coaching. And we were fortunate to be able to have our coaches internally fostered. So again, it's staff that were within the agency and kind of were known entities with diverse experience.
Yeah, I can't wait to touch on a little bit about how those coaches were chosen and the specific skills that you kind of worked on building or looked for as you identified those coaches. That might even be a topic for another episode as we talk about kind of coach development. But so talk to me a little bit about this embedded coaching. So we've talked a little bit before about how coaching is kind of embedded into the process. What does that mean then for y'all?
I think, we can talk about it from recognizing that being in a coaching relationship in and of itself is a commitment, right?
Mhm.
It's a lot of work. And when you want to see it happen, if it can happen at the same moment. So our coaches will go into the classroom with their coachees. We'll watch it happen in the moment. We'll set it up. We have a coaching agreements that we sign with our coachees. We talk to them about what the process is going to look like, and then we'll go in. We'll sit on the floor as they're holding a baby, as they're trying to play with a toddler or implement a new experience. We'll be right there, and it'll just be part of the work that we do with them. The action steps that come as a result of that it's happening simultaneously. There might be opportunities that we can do some outside of the classroom work as well, but most of our work has to be a part of something that they're already doing, because we know that learning has to be relevant and meaningful. So we really try to embed that. So I think that is probably more meaningful for our coachees. And what that means, again, for our coaches is that willingness to just show up, be present, and be ready to jump in and be flexible with what the needs are at the time, while also being mindful of what your intent is of being there, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about some of the methods you use in coaching. I'm hoping you're going to talk just a little bit about video here as a method for that. But what are some things you can share with folks about how you do this work?
I think the answer to that is to be open to there's lots of right ways to do it, right? There's so many right ways to do this coaching work. And however you choose to do it, what's going to be most important is that it's meaningful to the person on the receiving end. So in my work, we do a lot of in-person, but we have learned the value of video. We've learned the value of recording. We've learned that if you have this fabulous activity or this experience happening with a child and you have the video running, you're going to get to see things and hear things that you wouldn't see otherwise. There's a video Andy and I have been looking at for the past couple of weeks, and the teacher is pretty focused in on what's happening with the child she's working with, but she can't hear or see the reaction to what's behind her because she's in the moment. So she's not able to see those impacts, right, and how they expand out. The video allows that to happen. The comments on the video allows that different perspective of that interaction.
I mean, there's really something powerful. Like I record my coaching sessions with my coachees on Zoom. And so Jami can review that whole session. And I think there's, something really powerful about her being able to review that and say, let's look at the questions you asked. And we can really dig into the high level coaching practices. And, you can't do that unless you're willing to invest in those layers of support.
Yeah. And I also heard you say something else about, the idea of that video also provides multiple perspectives, multiple views. Each view can be through a different lens or a different perspective, depending on who's watching it, whether it's that teacher watching themselves, or maybe you and Jami watching that teacher that you're both supporting, or that you're both working, that works in that same organization that you're both supporting. That gives you further perspective and context around the types of things that are happening in that setting. So, and again, I invite the audience, if you want to hear more from Jami or Andy, if you've got specific questions, if you yourself are an early childhood coach, support person, or provider, and you want to learn a little bit more from them, please download the takeaways, reach out to them. They were super, super helpful, super engaged on social media. And we look forward to having them back again. So thanks again, y'all.
Well, thank you for having us.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you all next week.